This was going to be a top 14 of 2014 list, but decision making is hard. So it's almost a new year, and so I thought I would do my top 15 books I read in 2014. These are all books I read in 2014. These were all not necessarily all published in 2014. But there are a lot of sort of like booktube staples, I guess, that are in this list, because 2014 is when I got introduced to booktube. So I have a lot of the ones that people put on their list back when they were largely published that I'm a little slow on the uptake, but let's get started. Number 1 is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alire Sains. Sorry for pronouncing your name wrong. This book is fantastic. It was so good, so well written. The characters were just so well developed, and I loved that it was a love story, but it was very much, they built up their friendship first, and that was their first priority, and then they just sort of realized, oh shit, while we were becoming really good friends, we also happened to fall in love. The second book is Belzar by Meg Wolitzer. This book is about a girl who gets sent to a specialized boarding school after she's dealing with some depression after losing her boyfriend, and she gets into this special English class where they're studying the bell jar, and there's stuff with journals and it coping with different things in life, coping with life and learning that it's okay to move on and learning things about yourselves. This was one that I think a lot of people seem to either really, really like it or think it's horribly pretentious. Personally, I really loved it. I think it had a lot of heart. I really loved watching all the characters sort of go through their own journeys and help each other with finding their way and learning about themselves and about each other. I'm actually going to cheat a little bit and count entire series as one, because I was introduced to a lot of really good new series this year. And to the first book that I have that uses that excuse is The Archived by Victoria Schwab. The Archived and The Unbound were fantastic. I'm really hoping we can get a third book. She says that she's working on it, but she doesn't know when it's going to be published. But I'm really excited for a third one. This book was so good. It's about a girl whose job is to make sure histories, they're called histories, don't escape from the archive. And histories are basically when someone dies, all their like memories and stuff are stored as histories, and sometimes they escape into this sort of in-between world, and she has to, Mackenzie has to make sure they don't escape into our world because they can be dangerous sometimes. And it was so good. I remember I was reading the second one during, after I finished my history final at the end of last school year, and I was just desperately trying not to cry because I was reading the end of it, and I was just desperately trying not to cry at my desk with everyone around me. Oh my god, it was so good. Next up is another sort of booktube staple that I was a little slow on the uptake of, and that is Anna and the French Kiss, or really all of Stephanie Perkins' books. They're happy and fluffy and cute, and they make me happy. And one of the reasons in particular that I love Stephanie Perkins' writing is that her teenagers sound like teenagers. And it's not that most young adult novels have poorly written teenagers, it's just that I've noticed sort of a difference in how teenagers talk in young adult novels, or just novels in general, how teenagers talk in middle grade novels, and how teenagers talk in real life. And it's not that it's a bad difference necessarily, it's just sort of, I think it's really, there's a certain, like, ironic humor that a lot of teenagers seem to have just sort of naturally, and just the way teenagers hold themselves and present themselves that I think is really difficult to capture, and Stephanie Perkins does that so well. The next book is Cinder by Melissa Meyer, or really the entire Lunar Chronicles series. This series is fairy tale retellings, which is why I love it so much. I adore fairy tale retellings. Some of my favorite things to read. I adore fairy tales. And so these were so much fun because it's sci-fi fairy tales, which is awesome. And I was really kind of worried when I first started the series that they would sort of be like separate, I guess, more companion-y than series. And that like when we read Scarlet and Cress, or when I read Scarlet and Cress, I don't know why I'm using the royal we, you know, you wouldn't get Cinder's perspective. And it wouldn't be sort of the same story. But it is, and it's beautiful, and I am so excited for winter, and I am so excited for Ferris. The next book is If I Stay by Gail Forman. This book gave me so many emotions. I cried so hard and so much, and I kind of wish I had the other cover, because I really like the other cover. But whatever. I read this because when the trailer first came out, I watched the trailer, and it made me cry. The trailer made me cry. And so I'm like, clearly I have to pick up this book. And I did, and it was beautiful. Next up is Since You've Been Gone by Morgan Matson. I was really torn as to whether I wanted to put Since You've Been Gone or Amy Rogers' Epic Detour on this list, because I read both this year. But I think I'm gonna go with Since You've Been Gone. It's bigger, and I read it first. So yeah. But I loved that this was a romance, but also it was a story of like friendship and self-discovery just as much as it was a story of romance. The characters were fantastic. I loved that it felt like we got to know Sloane even though she wasn't actually there for most of the book. And also this cover is great. Next up is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. This is one I read for the Booksplosion Book of the Month for I think June. I am so glad I read this. It's really, really short. But I feel like I don't want to talk about it because I completely agree with the people who are like, no, you should go into it not knowing anything. That's what I did, and it was amazing. And I love E. Lockhart's writing style in this. The way she uses metaphors. I'm just gonna say that because I don't want to like ruin anything for anyone who hasn't read it, because I think the writing style contributes a lot to sort of the overall experience of reading it. So I don't want to spoil anything or ruin any of the experience for anyone, but I loved it. This next book is one that I'm actually kind of thinking of, it might go down into my all-time favorite books, and that is Everything Leads to You by Nina LaCour. First of all, just this cover is just so pretty. I love this cover. And then the spine, I love it. It's so pretty. It's so, I'll never get over how pretty this is. Anyway, I don't even know what to say about this book. I love it so much. I think the storyline's really cool. The characters in this were so great, and I felt like we really got to know everyone really, really well. I love the romance in this. I love that it wasn't just like a happy, pretty, sparkly romance, but their problems didn't stem from their sexuality. I like it when books don't, that have queer characters don't just focus on the queer issues. They focus on other things in their life, and they had problems outside of their sexuality, which I think is sometimes can be a little hard to find in especially young adult novels with queer characters. And so this was so good and fantastic representation. Hashtag we need diverse books. I loved this. The next series is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. This is so good. Such a badass main character. One of the most badass main characters I've ever read. Selena is so cool, and I just want to like sit and revel in her awesomeness. I feel like I genuinely care about all the characters, especially like Dorian and Rowan. Oh, those guys need hugs. I love them. Next up is I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. I love this book. It's so good. The way that it had two different timelines simultaneously could have been disastrous, but I think it worked so well, and I have emotions, you know? And another book with queer characters that weren't sort of like pigeonholed as being only, like, that their only defining trait is being queer, and it was so good. I love it so. I'm saying I love it so much about all of these books, but I really do love them so much. Next up is Winger by Andrew Smith. This is my favorite of Andrew Smith's books. It was also the first one I read. It's also the least weird, I think, out of all of them. But this book is an experience to read. Andrew Smith is another author, like Stephanie Perkins, who I think does a really good job of capturing the teenager voice. And he is sort of brutally honest about how his characters think. And I love that about him. He doesn't censor anything, and it's great. And this book kind of, to quote Miley Cyrus, it hits you like a wrecking ball. Because it's all fun and wonderful and smiling and great and laugh and funny and then emotions and tears. I cried, and I'm so excited for the sequel. Alright, getting down to the last couple. Number 13 is the Darkest Mind series by Alexandra Bracken. This is such a cool dystopian. It's great. And Liam is da bae. I love Liam so much. He is my favorite character. He's great. But I feel like this as an entire series is just so good. It's taking a concept that I think isn't necessarily like the most out of the blue thing. I mean, it's, you know, some kids on the run trying to deal with people hunting them down or whatever. You know, that's sort of a universal dystopian concept. But the way this was done with the concentration camps, oh my god, it was intense to read. Every single page was like super intense, and all the characters were beautiful and lovely, and I loved how it ended. I think the final book in the Afterlight was so well done. Number 14 is Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore. This is another sort of small one. Books about books, man. I love books about books. Also, I love that this cover glows in the dark. I think that's pretty cool. This was one that I read for Christina Horner's book club, the restriction section, and I really loved it. I thought it was so cool. Like, I don't know if that's the right word, but I thought it was so cool. It was like a mystery, but without all the mystery genre cliches, and it was a mystery, but I didn't really feel like I was reading a mystery. I don't know, it wasn't like a detective mystery. But I love books about books, and I loved the final reveal of the mystery. I thought that was really, really good. I'm not going to say what it is because spoilers, but I really loved this. The final book I have, at number 15, is Winger by R.J. Palacio. This book, oh god, man. This book is great. It's a middle grade, and a middle grade with this, like, intense emotion, I think is a little hard to find. And it's one of those books that makes you realize things about yourself while you're reading it. And also, there's someone for everyone to identify with in this, I think. Because it's from so many different people's points of view, everyone can find someone that they're like, oh my god, I've been there. I've seen this. I've experienced this. They're saying exactly what I feel. And it's really just amazing to read. Alright, so those are my top 15 books I read in 2014. I am very excited for what the year ahead will bring. Luckily, I won't have so much catch up to do this year because I did most of my sort of like booktube catch up this year. So I'm excited. It's gonna be a lot of fun. There are a lot of really, really good books coming out, and I'm pumped. It's gonna be great. Alright. I will see all you lovely people later. Mwah! Bye.